What happens when two of the most outspoken personalities in entertainment meet for what's supposed to be a light-hearted morning show interview? And it quickly turns into one of the most shocking confrontations ever broadcast live. The tension was palpable from the very first moment. Sharp questions, pointed answers, and an undercurrent of unspoken history created an atmosphere that left the entire studio stunned. The cameras rolled on Good Morning America. The audience settled into their seats, and Michael Strahan, smiling as always, prepared to welcome his next guest. Charlie Sheen walked in to polite applause, looking sharp in a dark suit, his expression unreadable. They shook hands and Sheen sat down. For about 10 seconds, it all seemed ordinary. Michael offering a standard greeting, Charlie nodding politely, adjusting his jacket. The audience expected the usual mix of laughs and celebrity stories, maybe a glimpse into Charlie's latest project. What they were about to witness was far from routine. Michael leaned forward, a glint in his eye suggesting the conversation would go deeper. So, Charlie, you've been relatively quiet lately compared to a few years back. What's changed? Are we seeing a different version of you now, or is this just the calm before another storm? Charlie's jaw tightened slightly. He let out a short, humorless laugh. Different version, Michael? I'm the same guy I've always been. The difference is that some people finally stopped making a living twisting my words. Michael's smile remained, but his eyebrows lifted. Interesting. Many would say you gave them plenty to work with, wouldn't they? Those wild moments. Charlie's tone cooled. Wild moments, sure. But here's the thing. When you're under the kind of pressure I was, constant scrutiny, cameras, hit pieces, people act like I was the first to ever have a rough patch. Ever had a rough patch, Michael? The question landed sharply. Michael hesitated, unprepared for the sudden challenge. Sure, everyone has tough times. But Charlie, you made some bold claims back then. Tiger blood, winning. Honestly, it looked like you were struggling. Charlie's smile vanished entirely. Bold claims. You know what I love about this business? Everyone wants honesty, until you're actually honest. Then they call you crazy. I was speaking my truth, Michael. Unfiltered? Yes. Was I dealing with stuff? Of course. But I wasn't lying about what I felt or went through. Michael nodded, attempting to maintain control. I hear that. But you also lost your job, relationships, money. Looking back, do you think you might have handled things differently? Charlie leaned back, arms crossed. Could I have handled it differently? Maybe. But I also think about all the people who profited off my struggles, writing, talking, doing segments. Where's their accountability? Their apologies? The studio quieted noticeably. Michael tried to redirect. I don't think anyone was trying to profit off your struggles. People were concerned, friends, colleagues. They worried about you. Charlie cut him off sharply. Concerned? Is that what we call it? From where I was sitting, it was entertainment. Everyone watching, waiting for me to fail so they could get another headline. And now, sitting here calm, suddenly everyone wants to play therapist, ask if I've learned a lesson. Have you learned, Michael, about how this business chews people up? Michael's friendly TV host persona cracked slightly. I'm not attacking, Charlie. I'm asking questions the audience wants answers to. That's my job, Charlie leaned forward, voice lower, intensity rising. Your job, right? Sitting comfortably, asking about the worst moments of someone's life, pretending it's concern. You ever been where I was? The world watching, waiting for you to mess up again so they could sell another headline? Michael's jaw tightened. The room felt electric. The interview no longer a friendly exchange, but a raw confrontation, exposing the harsh realities behind celebrity life, the scrutiny, the judgment, and the personal cost of fame. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every charged moment, leaving the audience riveted and shocked, unsure what would come next. I've had my share of challenges, Charlie, Michael said, voice steady but firm, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here because you agreed to come on, to discuss your career, your life. If you didn't want to talk about this stuff, why agree to the interview? The question hit hard. Charlie stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I agreed because I thought maybe, just maybe, we could have a real conversation, he said slowly. Instead of this rehearsed nonsense where you pretend to care while really just looking for the soundbite that'll trend on social media. The studio audience fell completely silent. You could feel the tension radiating even through the screen. Michael straightened in his seat, his voice firm. That's not fair, Charlie. I've been doing this a long time, and I treat my guests with respect. But respect goes both ways. You can't come on here, throw accusations around, and expect everyone to just nod along. Charlie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Respect goes both ways, huh? That's rich coming from someone who makes a living, asking people to relive their trauma for ratings. Tell me, Michael, what's the plan here? I answer your questions about my breakdown. We hug it out. Everyone feels good. Your producers get a viral moment. Is that how it works? Michael's face flushed slightly. For the first time in the interview, he looked genuinely rattled. You know what, Charlie? If you feel that way, maybe you should have thought twice before coming on. Nobody forced you here. You wanted to promote your new project. We gave you the platform. And yes, part of the conversation is going to include your past, because that's what people remember. Charlie's expression hardened. There it is. That's the truth, isn't it? You don't actually care about me or my story. You care about the version of me that gets clicks. The version that melted down. The version that makes your audience feel better about their own lives because, hey, at least they're not that guy. Michael opened his mouth to respond. But Charlie continued, his voice rising. And you know what the really messed up part is? I came here thinking enough time had passed. Maybe we could talk about the work, what I'm doing now, the fact that I'm still standing. But no, you have to dig up every mistake, every bad decision, because that's the only version of me that matters to people like you. Michael's composure started to slip. People like you? What does that mean exactly, Charlie? What are you implying? Charlie leaned forward, voice intense. I'm saying you built your career as the nice guy, the one everyone loves. But at the end of the day, you do the same thing everyone else does. You package people's pain as entertainment. You just hide it behind that smile. The camera cut to audience members, visibly uncomfortable, whispering to one another. Michael shook his head, voice tight. That is completely unfair and honestly insulting. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've had tough conversations, yes, but I've never exploited anyone. Sitting here attacking me personally while I'm just doing my job says more about your mental state than anything else. Charlie's eyes widened. He let out a bitter laugh. Where I'm at mentally, there it is. Can't have a disagreement without someone questioning my state of mind. That's exactly what I mean, Michael. The second I push back, the second I don't play along, suddenly I'm unstable again. Back to that narrative. Michael raised his hands defensively. That's not what I said. Don't twist my words, Charlie's voice sharpened. You just questioned my mental state on live television. Own it. You said it. Don't backtrack now. Michael's voice grew louder, strained. I said it says something about where you're at. And yes, maybe it does. But you're sitting here attacking me for asking basic questions any journalist would. You're being hostile and aggressive, and I'm trying to keep this civil. Charlie stood abruptly. There was an audible gasp from the audience. He didn't storm off. He simply stood, looking down at Michael. Hostile and aggressive, huh? Interesting choice of words. I think you're upset because, for once, someone isn't playing along with the charade. Someone is calling out this circus for what it is. Michael stood as well, the two men now face to face across the desk. If it's such a circus, Charlie, why are you here? Seriously, why did you agree to be on my show if you have a problem with how I do things? Charlie's voice dropped to a controlled intensity. Because I thought maybe you'd be different. I thought maybe, after all these years, after everything I've been through, I'd get a real conversation instead of an interrogation disguised as concern. I was wrong, Michael said, spreading his arms wide, addressing both Charlie and the audience. An interrogation? I asked you about your life, your experiences. That's what interviews are. You want me to just sit here and let you talk without any follow-up questions? That's not how this works, Charlie pointed at him, voice sharp. No, what you want is for me to sit here and admit I was crazy. Admit I was wrong about everything. Play the reformed bad boy who's learned his lesson so everyone can feel good about redemption. But I'm not giving you that, Michael. I don't owe you or anyone else that performance. The tension in the studio was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Michael's voice trembled slightly now, whether from anger or adrenaline. This isn't about performance, Charlie. It's about reality. You came on this show. You agreed to this interview, and now you're making it impossible to have a normal conversation. Charlie laughed again, the same humorless sound. A normal conversation? Nothing about this is normal. Cameras, producers, audience, all watching, waiting to see what happens next. And you're standing there acting like we're just two guys having coffee. This is theater, Michael, and you know it. The only difference is I'm honest about it. Michael shook his head. No. The difference is I'm trying to do my job professionally and you're having a meltdown on my set. Another audible gasp came from the audience. Charlie's expression went ice cold. A meltdown? You just said that on live television to millions watching. You just did exactly what I said you'd do. You proved my point. Michael's face tightened. I didn't mean it like that. I meant you're getting overly emotional about this conversation. Overly emotional? Charlie cut him off immediately. Because heaven forbid someone shows real emotion instead of a sanitized media version. You want to know what's really happening here? Michael, I'm tired. Tired of pretending everything's fine. Tired of smiling through interviews while people mine for drama. And I'm especially tired of people like you acting shocked when someone finally tells the truth. Michael's face reddened, voice rising to match Charlie's intensity. The truth? You want to talk about truth? The truth is, you came on here with an agenda. You wanted to start something, create a moment, and now you're acting like a victim because I asked reasonable questions. Charlie stepped around the desk, moving closer, and security started toward the set. Reasonable questions? You called my honesty bold claims. You brought up everything I lost. You questioned my mental state, and now you call that reasonable. Michael didn't back down. Yes, Charlie, I do. Millions of people watched you go through a public crisis. They're curious about where you are now. That's not exploitation. That's human interest. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. The two men stood inches apart, the camera frantically trying to capture both their faces. Charlie's voice dropped, low and intense. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing interviews. But what does that say about an industry that makes it impossible to be real? To be vulnerable without being torn apart for it? Michael studied him for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, serious. You want to know what it says? People are complicated, Charlie. We're all trying to navigate a world where everything is public, everything's scrutinized. You think you're the only one feeling that pressure? You think I don't know what it's like to have every word analyzed, every expression picked apart? The difference is, I don't blame everyone else for it. Charlie's expression shifted, something flickering across his face. You don't get it. You can't get it. You're on the other side of this desk, Michael. You're the one asking the questions, holding the power. You've never been in the seat I'm in, being picked apart, having your worst moments thrown back at you, all while someone pretends it's honest conversation. Michael's voice rose again. I've been interviewed, Charlie. I've had people ask me tough questions about my divorce, my career, personal things I didn't want to discuss. But I've never tried to attack the person across from me. I've never made it about humiliation. That's the difference here. The studio hung on every word. Two men, standing face to face, voices echoing through the space. A live audience and millions watching at home, caught in the crossfire. The line between interview and confrontation had vanished entirely, leaving only raw honesty, frustration, and the unspoken cost of fame exposed in real time. And you know what I did? Charlie said, his voice low, sharp with frustration. I answered them. Or I politely declined. I didn't turn it into a referendum on journalism. Michael listened, jaw clenched. Charlie, you don't know what I've been through, he said evenly. Just like I don't know everything you've been through. But I'm not standing here making assumptions about your character based on one conversation. Charlie shook his head, a flicker of bitterness in his eyes. You've never had the entire world turn on you. Never had every mistake amplified 1,000 times. It's easy to take the high road when you've never hit rock bottom. The words hung between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Charlie's voice emerged quieter but no less intense. Let me be clear about my character, since that seems to be what we're really talking about. I made mistakes. I said things I shouldn't have said, did things I shouldn't have done, but I never pretended to be something I wasn't. And when everyone else was profiting off my breakdown, treating it like must-see TV, I was the only one getting blamed. Where were the think pieces about media responsibility? Where was the concern about ethics when every outlet in the world was running stories about me 24/7? Michael exhaled slowly, his tone softening. You're right. The media circus around you was excessive. I'll give you that. But Charlie, you also fed into it. You gave interviews. You went on shows. You said provocative things. You can't have it both ways. You can't court the attention and then act surprised when it becomes overwhelming. Charlie's eyes narrowed. So it's my fault? That's what you're saying? I brought it on myself? Michael raised his hands, trying to calm the tension. No, I'm saying it's complicated. Not all or nothing. Can we at least agree on that? Charlie didn't answer immediately. He looked at Michael, expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. You know what the worst part is? I came here ready to talk, really talk, about where I've been, what I've learned, what I'm working on now. But the second you started with the greatest hits of my failures, I knew we weren't going to get there. I knew this would be another retread of the same old story. Michael's shoulders slumped slightly. Then why didn't you say that? Why didn't you just tell me you wanted to focus on the present instead of turning this into... Whatever this is? Charlie let out a long breath. Because I'm tired, Michael. Tired of managing everyone else's expectations. Tired of choosing words carefully so they don't get spun into another headline. You asked me earlier what's changed. The honest answer, nothing. Nothing's changed because no one wants it to. Everyone wants the guy from a few years ago, the entertaining one. This guy, he gestured at himself, trying to have a real conversation isn't interesting enough. The audience was silent. Michael's expression softened, visibly affected. That's not true, Charlie. People do want to see you succeed. People do care about your story, about who you are now. But you've got to give them a chance. You have to let people in. Charlie's laugh was bitter. Let people in. I let people in, and they tore me apart. I was honest about what I was feeling, about what I was going through, and it became a punchline. So forgive me if I'm a little defensive when someone starts asking about the worst period of my life on national television. Michael nodded slowly. Okay, I hear that. And maybe I could have approached this differently. Maybe I should have started with where you are now instead of where you've been. But Charlie, you've got to meet me halfway.
You came on my show.
You knew what this was going to be. If you didn't want to talk about your past, you should have said something before we went live. Charlie closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something was different. Exhaustion, maybe, or acceptance. You're right. Absolutely right. I should have said something. I didn't think I'd react like this. I thought I was past it. Thought I could handle the questions without it getting under my skin. Clearly, I was wrong. The two men were still standing, but the aggressive tension had eased slightly. Michael spoke carefully, his voice steady. Look, Charlie, I don't want this to be how this interview ends. Can we sit back down? Michael asked, his voice calm but earnest. Can we try to actually have that conversation you wanted to have? Charlie paused, staring at him for a long moment, then glanced at the audience before returning his gaze to Michael. I don't know if we can, Michael. I don't know if I can sit here and pretend everything's fine when it's not. I feel like I'm being judged for every word I say. Michael softened his tone, leaning forward slightly. I'm not judging you, Charlie, really. I'm trying to understand. Maybe I went about it the wrong way, but my intentions weren't to make you feel attacked. Charlie ran a hand through his hair, the first glimpse of vulnerability replacing the usual anger. Intentions don't always matter, do they? The impact is what matters. And the impact of this conversation is that I feel exactly like I did all those years ago, when everyone was watching, waiting for me to break. And I hate that feeling, Michael. I really hate it. There was a long pause. Michael looked down at his desk, then back up at Charlie. I'm sorry. If I made you feel that way, I am genuinely sorry. The apology seemed to catch Charlie off guard. He blinked, processing it. You're apologizing. On live TV? Michael nodded. Yeah, because you're right. This didn't go the way it should have, and I have to own my part in that. Charlie stared at him, some tension draining from his posture. I don't know what to do with that. I came here ready for a fight, and you're apologizing. Michael allowed himself a small smile. Well, we definitely had the fight. Maybe now we can try something else. Charlie hesitated, then slowly returned to his chair. Michael followed. The studio atmosphere shifted. The electric tension softened into something uncertain, tentative. Charlie spoke first, quietly. I don't know how to do this, Michael. I don't know how to talk about my life without it feeling like I'm being put on trial. Michael leaned forward, voice sincere. Then let's not do that. Let's just talk. No agenda. No trying to get anywhere specific. Just two people having a conversation. Can we try that? Charlie looked at him wearily. You really think we can after everything that just happened? Michael shrugged. I don't know, but we've got nothing to lose at this point. We're already past the point of this being a normal interview. Might as well see if we can make it real. Charlie considered, then nodded slowly. All right, let's try. But if you start back with the psychoanalysis, I'm walking off. Michael raised his hands. No psychoanalysis. I promise. Just talk to me. Tell me what you want people to know, not what you think they want to hear, but what you actually want to say. Charlie took a deep breath. When he spoke, his voice was steadier. I want people to know that I'm still here. Still working. Still creating. Still figuring things out. I want them to know I'm not the guy from the headlines anymore. But I'm also not going to pretend that guy never existed. He was real. That pain was real. I'm not apologizing for it anymore. But I won't let it define everything I do for the rest of my life. Michael nodded, listening intently. That's fair. That's really fair. And for what it's worth, I think a lot of people will respect that. The conversation continued, careful at first, then gradually more open, more honest. The anger had burned out, replaced by something raw and sincere. When they finally wrapped, neither man looked entirely satisfied, but a mutual respect lingered where there had been tension. They shook hands. Charlie left the set to muted applause. Michael watched him go, then turned to the camera, expression hard to read. So, what did you just witness? A breakdown in professional broadcasting? Or the most honest conversation ever captured on live television? Did Charlie Sheen cross a line? Or did he finally say what everyone's been thinking about how celebrity interviews really work? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And make sure you subscribe. We'll be breaking down the fallout from this interview and what it means for both of these careers.